Ladies and non-responders, Andy here, author of the best Tinder guide on the freaking internet, and guy who just met Johnny Depp, Elon Musk, and Riley Reid at a birthday party last Tuesday. This is the Kill You're in a Loser show. Let's fucking go.
Wait, whose birthday party was it?
That's none of your fucking business. What are you talking about? It's as if anyone gives a shit about that. Let's talk about the main topic at hand here. I am joined by my interrupting girlfriend, Imogen.
Role reversal for once.
What do you mean role reversal? Are you saying, okay, so we haven't talked about this, have we? One of the most requested requests is that I stop interrupting you. I have so many comments from guys saying like, Andy, you interrupt Imogen all the time. Just let the bitch speak. And it's like, it's my podcast. Go fuck yourself. So
yeah, I actually don't really mind. I like listening to you talk.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys shut your fucking mouths, all right? So we're going to talk about, the podcast here is only sleep with girls who are responsive during sex. And what I mean by that is they actually give feedback. They tell you if they're enjoying something. They make it clear they're enjoying something. They make it clear when they're not enjoying something. And what we're talking here is mostly to do with like kinky sex or rough sex. So it applies a little less if you're just having like vanilla sex, but
even then
applies a little bit, sure. So essentially a coaching client of mine went through this experience here, and he's given me permission to talk about this shit. And I'm going to give all the context first, and then we're going to talk about what happened, and then we're going to talk about what you can do to make sure this doesn't happen. And for most of you, this won't happen, so don't freak out too much about this. But basically, here's all the context. So he was seeing this girl, and he saw her about 12 times. They didn't sleep together every one of those 12 times, but they fooled around, they messed around. He gave her orgasms, he tied her up a bunch, explored some kinky sex and that. So let's say for most of those 12 times they met, they did something sexual. And I think the last couple of times he fucked her. And, before that, it was like orgasms, edging, ropes, blindfolds, kinky shit, right? She liked it very, very rough. And he's someone who doesn't like it crazy rough, but he's willing to give that if a girl likes it. He's a pretty fucking generous lover. Not that I would know, no homo, but I've heard he's a pretty generous lover. And so he likes to, give girls what they want. So for this girl, she wanted it really rough. He gave that to her. And she said to him specifically, don't stop when I say stop. Because sometimes I just say stop. If you spank me really hard, I might say stop. Let's come up with a safe word. And he said, okay, cool. Like, what should the safe word be? She said red. They agreed on red is the safe word. Cool, done. Next bit of context is he's one of the nicest, most fucking gentle, lovely people that I've ever met in my entire life. Like, probably 50 million times nicer than I would ever be. And I'm already pretty fucking nice. Very gentle, very considerate, very much wants the other person to have a great time, very much cares about women and people having a good time, like all that kind of shit. On top of that, he's someone that asks for a lot of feedback during sex, which is what we're going to talk about here, because this is, kind of mandatory. And so when I say feedback, how does that feel? You having fun? Is that good? Does that turn you on? Tell me how you feel. Is that too rough? Do you want me to stop? Like that kind of shit, which especially if you're doing kinky sex or BDSM or something and you haven't done it much before, even when you've done it a lot, I would say
it's good to do that. We still do that a lot.
We do that a lot all the fucking time. I say, how does that feel? Is that turning you on? Tell me how that feels. And you can make it a sexual thing. You don't have to sit there and go, how does that feel? Is that too rough? Like, you don't have to be like that. You're like, how's that feel? Is that fucking good? You can even make it super sexual. Be like, how does that fucking feel? Does that feel good? You fucking whore. So I had a safe word, very careful. He's also very, ginger isn't the right word. Like, he's not a ginger, but I'm saying he's not very he is kind of gingerly with how he steps into BDSM. He's very careful. He goes one step at a time. Like I said, with this girl, they messed around 12 times. He tied her up a bunch of stuff. So he likes to go step by step and kind of add layers each time. So the first time it might just be vanilla sex or fooling around. I think they didn't even fuck the first couple of times. They just fooled around, orgasms, shit like that. Next bit of context is that she had an ex come back into town and she was a little freaking weird about that. And so my understanding of the situation is she probably still has feelings for the ex. She doesn't want to see this client of mine, or she feels weird seeing this client of mine. There's some sort of weird feelings there, blah, 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 blah. So I think that's all the context that I need. Let me just make sure I haven't missed any context. I think that's pretty much there. So To summarize, he's very fucking gentle with BDSM. He never goes over the fucking top. They'd seen each other like 12 or so times, and she'd had a great time every single time. He has a lot of safe words. He checks in a bunch of times, like, how does that feel? Are you enjoying this? This isn't too rough, is it? She wanted it rougher, and he slowly escalated to a point where she said, okay, like, I really like that, but he's the one that doesn't like it that rough, or he would prefer to be more gentle. So, you know, they met a bunch of times, good shit, everything's great. The most recent...
Yeah, no, sorry.
Okay.
I was going to say, like, what you've mentioned to me is that it seemed like normal the most recent time.
Yeah, so we'll get to that. So the most recent time they met, everything seemed fucking normal. They meet, they talk for a little bit. She says she feels weird about this ex who's back in town. And so they kind of talk about that a little bit. He said they talked for like an hour or some shit. You know, he takes her to the bedroom. He ties her up, blindfolds her like normal, has the fucking magic wand vibrator, makes her orgasm a bunch of times. She's having a great time. I think, you know, they ended up having sex for a bit. Everything's great. They hang out. Seems fucking normal. Everything's good. She leaves. Then he gets a fucking letter from her a couple days later. I don't know when, but a couple days later, basically saying, and I should add that, you know, for context, again, the whole time, how does that feel? Are you enjoying that? You know, they have a fucking safe word. She doesn't use it. He's not even really that rough. You know, they go through all that shit. She seems to have a good fucking time. She comes multiple fucking times with him. And then he gets a letter a couple of days later, basically saying, I feel like you went too far. This was too much for me, blah, blah, blah. You know, you pushed me further than I could go. I felt coerced into doing this shit. Like, just fucking, like, crazy shit, right? Like, completely unreasonable shit when you had a fucking safe word. You didn't use the fucking safe word. You orgasmed multiple times. You seemed to have a good time. You had seen each other a bunch of times. And by his own words, this wasn't particularly like rougher than usual, maybe 5% rougher than usual, but basically on par with what they'd already done. You had multiple fucking orgasms. You had a good time. It seemed great afterwards. And what I suspect has happened is, obviously I can't read her fucking mind. Maybe she's having second thoughts. Maybe she feels weird because the ex is back in town. Maybe it was a little too far. That's a possibility. I'm not even fucking calling her a liar. What I do have an issue with, or the point of this podcast is, well, there'll be 2 points of this podcast, but it's not fucking okay to, and I'm saying on her part, it's not fucking okay to have a good time with someone, all this kind of shit, and then dump you coerced me, this is your fault, you're the bad person, which was the insinuation in her letter that he's a bad person because he couldn't read her fucking mind when he's asking her multiple times, are you enjoying this? How does that feel? Is this too much? Is this good? We have a fucking safe word. We've seen each other 12 times. You can tell me if something's not good. So one of the points that I want to make here, first of all, the first point I'll make is, guys, don't freak out and think like, if you do kinky sex, this is going to happen. This woman is an exception. I'd say she's a train wreck. I would actually say, and I said this to him and made this very clear, and a couple of his other friends who are very experienced with BDSM made this point too, she's a fucking asshole. Like, you're an asshole to go through all the context that I just said, to have a safe word, to have built trust with someone. And BDSM or rough sex, I mean, he doesn't even really do BDSM. It's more just like kinky sex. I guess you can call that BDSM. There is trust involved there. She has to be able to trust you that you'll look after her. And just as importantly, and this often gets forgotten or ignored, you have to be able to trust that she will tell you if she doesn't like something, or she'll use the safe word, or sometimes she will go through a sexual experience and then afterwards feel like, fuck, I think maybe we pushed it too far. You have to be able to trust that she will just say that to you in a non-accusatory way, to say, I think we went too far. I didn't know that at the time. I feel like now maybe we were a little too rough. Like, I think I need some space, or I just need to think about it, or can we talk about it, or is it okay if we're more gentle next time, or can I just have a week to kind of like think about things? Like, that's doing it in a normal, healthy human way. It's not okay to write a letter saying, you coerced me, this is your fault. Like, essentially almost saying, you sexually assaulted me. Like, that's kind of the insinuation, is like, you pushed me too far. But because there is no ground in that statement, she hasn't said that because she knows that would just be a fucking
lie,
shit thing to say. Yeah. So she's gotten as close. She's doing the passive aggressive version of it by saying, you pushed me, you coerced me, like blah, 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 blah. You're the bad person. You're the enemy, essentially. And I really had to make this clear to him. That's not okay. Like, trust goes both ways.
Yeah.
And in this,
Oh, sorry.
Jump in. If you got something to say, jump in.
I was going to say there's a level of responsibility that comes with, like, yes, we're talking BDSM, and I think even generally with, like, a masculine, feminine dynamic, the man is stronger, generally speaking, taking the lead, in control. But, yeah, of course, there is a level of responsibility that comes with the person who is
in the submissive
role. And once, there's two people involved, and all of the responsibility can't be on the one person. And once that person is held up, from what it sounds like, to every degree to which they could,
above and beyond.
Yeah,
he goes
in terms of their
above and
responsibility.
beyond. Yep.
You can't do 100% of things. And so when things go wrong, it's not entirely one person's fault because two people are involved. And obviously it sounds like in this situation, it is very much that like victim mindset of like, I feel bad, therefore it's your fault.
Yeah, because she even said in the letter, she said the statement, I associate these negative feelings with you. It's like, how is that? Like, I understand that you feel that way, but that by your own admission, I didn't make you feel this way. You just happened to feel this way at the same time as you saw me. Like, that's your statement. Like, you associate these negative feelings with me. That doesn't mean I did something wrong. And in this case, I said to him, I don't think you did anything wrong except for what we will talk about here, which is never sleep with a girl, and I'm pretty confident enough that I can say never, who isn't responsive during sex. And so the extra bit of context that we'll talk about here is he said to me there were multiple times over the 12 times that they saw each other that she wouldn't answer during sex, or she'd give just a short answer. So he'd say, how does that feel? And she would just go like,
Yeah, and for context, I'm assuming all of those times in the past were times that were perfectly okay, she enjoyed, but she was also just very, very quiet.
She's in her own head. She's either enjoying it or she's in the moment or she's, experiencing BDSM. Anyone who's experienced with this shit will call that sub-drop or subspace, which we'll talk about that in a second. And he being very cautious and the kind of person that he is, he would stop if she didn't answer properly. And he'd say like, no, don't just like groan. Like, are you actually enjoying this? Like, are you sure? Does this feel good? Like, how does this feel? And then she would, pull herself out of her head and she'd go like, no, I want you to keep going. It feels great. And then he said she'd get back into that kind of like quiet mode where she's in her own head, enjoying the sex or whatever. And then again, 20 minutes later, he'd be like, how does that feel? And she just wouldn't fucking answer. And he'd stop and he'd go like, no, answer me. I want you to tell me that you fucking enjoy this. Because he gets off on like feedback. It's hot having a girl tell you, oh my God, that feels so fucking good. Like begging you, like that's hot. You're someone that's very vocal during sex and my God, is that hot? Like it's really fucking hot. And you and I have slept with, let's just say one girl that I can think in particular who was exactly like the girl in this story. She wouldn't answer. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
A little short.
Yeah, very short. And she would just go in her own head, wouldn't she? And like she wouldn't respond.
Yeah, and also she really, really, really liked pain.
Yes.
And she wanted us to push that limit.
Yes.
And that was very hard to do.
I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, because the whole time you're like, this feels uncomfortable. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. And they're not giving any feedback back. And the only time that they do is when you've finished having sex, talking afterwards. Sure, then they're normal. But you don't know in the moment if you've gone too far. And they're not going to tell you whether it's good, whether it's bad.
Correct.
It's just not a good time.
And that's why I talk about trust and safety. So people do this and it frustrates me. Maybe it only frustrates me because I'm the one that's taking the lead and I'm the one that's dominant. Where people just look at the safety and the trust in terms of the girl's point of view or the submissive person's point of view. And they go like, oh, she needs to feel safe. She needs to be able to trust, the guy that's taking the charge. We got to think about her. And it's like, what about the other fucking person? If I don't know if something I'm doing is over the line for you because you don't tell me and you don't respond and you're just in your own head, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. Because what might happen is what happened with this guy. And again, this guy didn't even fight. This is we'll talk about this. This chick in this story is fucking insane and she's a fucking asshole. I will make that really clear. She's a fucking asshole. She's broken the bonds of trust that go into something like this. You can say maybe she's inexperienced. I don't care. She's a fucking asshole. I don't care how experienced she is. She's a fucking asshole. You are a fucking asshole if you don't speak up and say how you feel, or even afterwards reach out and say that was a little too far. What she has done is said, you are the bad person. You forced me. You coerced me. You pushed me too far. You should have been able to read my fucking mind. Even though, by the way, he's asking multiple times the entire time, how does that feel? How does that feel? How does that feel? How does that feel? He's supposed to suddenly know that every time she says it feels good, she really means you're forcing me right now, or I want this to stop. Like, I don't know how he's going to fucking read that. But what's happened there is a betrayal of safety and a betrayal of trust. You can't feel safe as the dominant person or as the man if you can't trust that the other person is going to be honest with you. She has fucking lied to him when she said it feels good, when she's not used the safe word, when she said this is great, when she's laid in bed and cuddled afterwards, when she's fucking orgasmed with him and let him use toys and all of that. And again, let's make it really fucking clear. He's asking her constantly. Like, how does this fucking feel? Is this good? Is this hot? Is that too much?
At the point at which you ask multiple times, under no duress, to like answer yes.
I know, it's not like he's got his fist there and he's like, you better fucking tell me you're having fun, bitch, or you're dead.
And it's like, do you like, if you say yes, that immediately revokes all responsibility from him, especially if it's asked multiple times.
Correct. And that's why, again, so here's how the situation should have played out, because I want to make this clear. I'm not saying there is an issue that afterward, I'm not saying it's bad that afterwards she changed her mind or regretted it or something. That happens. That's part of sex, especially kinky sex. Where she fucked up was saying, you're the bad person, here's a letter saying how you're evil, and me getting close to saying you did something really fucking wrong and immoral. I'm getting close to saying that, but I would just pussy out and say you pushed me, or you forced me, or you coerced me, without actually saying the fucking real word that we all know is sitting there, right? That's the bad thing. She should have reached out to him and said, I feel like that was too much. Like, or my ex is back in town and I feel weird. Maybe that's why we're doing this. Or I just don't know if I want to do kinky sex anymore. Or I felt like maybe you pushed me a little too far and maybe I just wanted to chill out and talk to you longer about my ex. He thinks that maybe that had something to do with it, that she just wanted to, because remember they talked for like an hour or whatever about the ex before they had sex, and he thinks maybe she wanted to talk for longer. But it's like, he said, come into the fucking bedroom. What is he meant to say? Like, come into the bedroom, but like, you definitely want to, right? Like, you're definitely not feeling coerced right now. And actually, should we get a third party to ask that question? Because if I ask you that question, you might feel pressured to answer yes. So do you want to just go outside for 15 minutes and really think about if it is a yes or not? And then at any point during the sex, you can revoke that. And so what I will do is constantly every 10 minutes, I will stop. We'll have a 15-minute timeout. You can tell me how you're feeling. Like, that's not fucking sex at that point. That's some weird fucking... I don't even know what that is. That's some dystopian feminist fucking wet dream. I think even the feminists would agree.
Nobody would
fucking,
actually enjoy that sort of sex.
It's disgusting. It's not even sex at that point. And again, it's not his job to mind read. So I feel bad for him. This chick's an asshole. I really want to make it clear that I think I made it fairly clear that she's not an asshole because she had regrets. Like, that happens.
No, it's the accusatory nature of it all. It's the 0 to 100. It's having, like, taking no personal
we're on the
responsibility.
same team.
Yeah.
It started out, we're on the same team. We like each other. We're having a good time together. Now you're a fucking coercive, come close to say rapist, but not quite say that word.
Yeah.
You know, you pushed me. You forced me. You're a bad dom. It's like, you're a shit sub.
Yeah.
If you're going to call me a bad dom, you're the world's worst sub. You are by definition the worst sub ever. Because I can't fucking trust that you'll tell me if you're not enjoying something when I specifically say, are you enjoying this? And then I can't trust if you do have regrets, you'll come to me like an adult and say, hey, I have regrets. Or, hey, I don't want to see you anymore. Or, hey, this and that. You'll just immediately say that I'm a bad person because I didn't mind read. Again, you said it best before. You said it's a lack of agency. It's a victim mindset. It is.
Yeah.
It's that she didn't, in her mind, she didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, and then I can never do anything. I mean, obviously this is a very sweeping statement, but I can never do anything wrong. I'm always going to be the victim because I'm the female.
The submissive, the female. Yeah, it's the big bad man's responsibility to look after me. And I think guys will know exactly what I'm talking about here. A lot of women might not have thought about this. I know you have. It can be scary being a guy.
I will say particularly with like the trend of everything and...
Me Too movement and all that shit.
And obviously, like, there's validity in a lot of it, but then there's also crazy lies and terrible shit that happens. And I can see that being the most terrifying thing ever for
guys, for sure.
For a man, because your whole world can basically crumbling down. Even if it's not true, someone can destroy you through accusations and lies.
And even if it's not true, and there's another element, men have a very strong white knight drive inside us. All of us do. And no matter how much you try and squash that, I tried really hard to squash that during my red pill days. You can't really squash it. Men want to protect women. In the same way that women want to protect their children, men have that urge with women. And anyone lesser than, like, old people, disabled people, but especially women. Men really want to look after women. And there is this really fucked up like white knight thing that comes out as well when a woman accuses you, or when people accuse you of doing something to a woman. There's this weird fear of like, it's really hard to describe, but it's like, not only did I not do that and I'm being called a liar, but I also empathize with the woman, and I hate that she's going through some pain, and I wish I could do something to stop it. But at the same time, I'm twisted in my own mind, and I feel gaslit because she's the one accusing me of this, and I hate seeing that she's in pain, but also I didn't cause that pain, and I'm in pain, and I'm fucking like, she's accusing me of something, but I have to put my shit aside because I'm thinking about how she might be fucking suffering, and I don't want anyone to think that I would make a woman suffer. It's like a very strong white knight urge that we all have. You can try and suppress it, but it's fucking there. And so that just makes it even worse. It's like she's preying upon that, and so many girls do prey upon that, subconsciously or consciously. You know, I'm going to prey upon this like men's fear of ever harming a woman. I'm going to prey upon that and hint at the fact that you did something bad to a woman. You hit a woman. You hurt a woman. You pushed a woman. And it's like, because they know that that's such a fucking sensitive point for men. It really is. If you ever want to fucking shut a man up, accuse him of being misogynistic. That's why that word works so well. That's why guys will fucking kowtow and do anything to like not lose their job or not look like a bad person or this. You just have to hint like, oh, don't you care about women? You're pushing women. You're a bad person. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think to circle it back to something more positive, the point is that the example of this girl is very extreme.
Let's make that clear. This is a crazy bitch. Yeah. This is a crazy bitch. This isn't something that normally happens. This is a crazy bitch. Like, that needs to be said.
And at the end of the day, I think your client did the right thing. Like you said, he spoke to his friends, he spoke to you.
Spoke to me.
And basically made sure that, like, no, I did everything that I could.
Yep.
He did everything
I'm not a
that
bad
he
person.
could. He's not. And I'm sure the more experience you get, like, if this happened to you now, you're not going to, maybe there's going to be the moment of, like, I feel weird and bad about this. But also,
I feel gross about it, sure.
But there's definitely going to be that assurance of, like, no, that this isn't my fault.
I would run through the checklist, and it's important to run through a checklist and not just immediately say, this isn't my fault, because it might be. Yeah. Run through the checklist. Did we have a safe word? Did I ask her multiple times? Did I get some feedback? Had we seen each other a bunch of times so I know there was a history of she enjoying everything we did? Was I particularly extra rough this time? He wasn't. You know, he said like 5% rougher, if that. Did we do anything crazy that we hadn't done before? Was there anything I did that we didn't talk about being on her bucket list? Like, did I just fucking fuck her in the ass out of nowhere when she'd never talked about that? Because, yeah, that might traumatize someone, obviously. You know, you run through that checklist and then you go, well, I feel like I did everything right. Is there anything I missed? Sure, maybe I could have done something. Maybe I could have read her fucking mind. Maybe I asked her 5 times if she's enjoying it, or 10 times. Maybe I could have asked 20 times. Maybe I could have not fucked her because she was sad about her ex, but how am I supposed to know that? So I think what's happened, again, she's come over. She's wanted to complain about missing her ex, which semi-reasonable, but also semi-unreasonable to your friends with benefits. You come over under the assumption that we're going to have sex, and you just kind of cry about your... I shouldn't be that hard on that point, because fine, like, you know, maybe you want to... It's reasonable that you'd want to talk about it, fine. But it's also reasonable to expect that you would probably have sex, and they did have sex, and she's very fucking seemingly into the sex, and then afterwards you associate negative feelings with this guy because you're sad about your fucking ex being back in town and you miss him and shit, and then you've just gone, well, you make me feel icky. I felt icky when I was at your place because I was thinking of my ex, therefore it's your fault you made me feel icky. By that logic, if I'm just having a bad day and I go stand out on the street and I'm standing next to someone else and I'm depressed because, I don't know, my mum died or some shit, I can look at that person and go, you're making me feel depressed right now. And it's like, how's he doing that? I just happen to be near him when I'm feeling bad. And I think, I can't fucking read minds, but I suspect that is part of what has happened here. And maybe she did feel like things went too far. I don't know how when they didn't all the other times. I suspect, again, she's just in a, here's what's probably happened. Let's take a step back and be reasonable.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's the feeling that comes first.
Yes.
And then you have to find, search for reasons as to why you feel that way to justify the things that you're feeling.
Yep.
And then, obviously, we're looking at it and analyzing that, and it doesn't seem rational because it's not, because you have this feeling and it's this notion of, I'm feeling this, therefore it must be true. And then you have to then go and search for
meaning. Yeah. That's called hoc rationalization. It's when you feel a feeling and then you go, well, there must be a rational reason for this, and you basically just invent a rational reason. But the feeling comes first. Well said. It's similar to what I was going to say, which is she felt icky about her ex being back in town and about missing him. They had sex. She probably wishes she didn't have sex, and that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah, you probably shouldn't have had sex. And maybe he did fucking, I don't know, maybe in some world he should have known. That's a stupid, I won't even go down that path because that's just unreasonable. He can't fucking know that. But, you know, you felt icky, you had sex. Afterwards you went like, oh God, I wish we hadn't had sex. Like, I wish he just didn't want to have sex. Like, why did he want to have sex? I'm emotional about my ex. You're in a fragile state of mind. I understand that. That is really fucking unfortunate. I would feel bad for the girl up until this point.
Yeah.
If she then reached out and even wrote a letter or something and just said like, I think I regret what we did. I wish we hadn't had that sex. You know, it's not your fault. I know you're a sweet guy. You're a good human being. She's missed the fucking, completely misread someone and accused probably one of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire fucking life. The most decent human beings I've ever met in, like a staunch libertarian, like libertarian, the actual like doing libertarianism instead of just I'm a libertarian. Like the last person on earth who would ever hurt another human being or would ever even want another human being to be hurt, even inadvertently. And she's accused that person of being a bad person. It's like, way to fucking miss the mark there, sweetheart. And so I understand that she's vulnerable. I understand that it's probably just a shit situation for both of them. The one thing he didn't do is blame her and be a fucking asshole. And so that's when I lose empathy. I won't say I lose empathy, but that's when she crosses the line there for me. When she says, you're a bad person because I was in a fragile state of mind and I wish we hadn't had sex because I miss my ex or whatever's going on. So shit situation all round. Let's switch it and talk a little more positively. Because part of this podcast, and we won't go on because we're already at like half an hour, part of what I wanted here was to have a takeaway message. You know that I always like takeaway messages. So as I said to him, right, going forward, never sleep with a girl who doesn't give you a lot of feedback during sex and who isn't like open and honest, because that may have stopped this happening. Because if she's already unresponsive during sex, she's probably just going to suck it up and say, yeah, I miss my ex, I'm sad, but whatever, I'm gonna go along with it. He wants to have sex, so we'll just fuck. Right? She's already got a history of not being responsive and telling you if she likes something, telling you if she doesn't. She just goes quiet and in her own head. And so what I say to him and what I'll say to you guys is if there ever is a girl who isn't responsive, like she doesn't give you feedback, she doesn't say if she likes something, she doesn't say if she doesn't like something, she just isn't super fucking chatty. And, you know, some girls won't be like that the first time and then they'll open up. But if you've seen her like 12 times and she still hasn't opened up, don't fucking see that girl. Don't sleep with that girl especially. Don't sleep after 2 times if she hasn't opened up and she doesn't respond when you ask her questions. Run. Not run, but like end things. Just
it's
say like, sorry, it's yeah.
Which is what we did with the girl who was very unresponsive, because at that point it just wasn't enjoyable for us.
It's not enjoyable if you don't feel safe. And guys, I want you to think, you know, do you feel safe if you're fucking a girl? Safe's a strong word. Does it feel good if you're fucking a girl and you say like, are you enjoying it? And she just doesn't answer and you're like, I think she's enjoying it. I mean, I'm having fun. Like, she is having fun, right? Like, and then afterwards she goes like, oh yeah, that was fun. And you're like, okay, but like, I didn't know for like half an hour. I just had to assume that you were having fun. Like, cause you weren't actually there with me. You weren't present. You were in your own head. And I was just kind of fucking your body, almost like some fucking necrophilia thing. Like you were asleep or something. You're so in your own head that you just not really, because this guy said that apparently she didn't really moan or anything either, which is like the girl that we slept with.
Yeah, she was just super like that. Quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's...
I was just saying, I think that ultimately, like, once you've had that conversation, even just say, like, I would love for you to be a bit more vocal, or tell me how it is. I want you
to be more vocal.
Yeah, at some point, like you said, 12 times, or, you know, like the girl that we saw her quite a few times as well. At some point,
I think we saw her like 4 or 5 times. Yeah.
Yeah. After you've had that conversation, you ask the questions, you do what you can. Like you said, you just have to call it off, because it can lead to stuff like this. And obviously it's not his fault that this happened, but as general advice, if that's being given now, it's avoid this sort of person.
Yeah. Avoid people who don't fucking respond. Avoid people who get too in their own head that they can't even tell you if they're liking something in the moment. And I'm not saying this is inevitable. Again, this is a really fucking weird situation. I don't even think this is entirely because she was unresponsive. I think it's just that she's not self-aware. She's kind of a fucking asshole, and she's let's be honest, she's dumb that she would associate vulnerable state of mind. Maybe dumb's a strong word, but no, you know what?
I hope it's a very basic level of like classical conditioning.
Yeah, she's very dumb. Let's be honest, she's fucking dumb. If she can't tell, like, I'm in a vulnerable state of mind because I miss my ex and I probably shouldn't have had sex with this guy. It's not entirely this guy's fault. It's my fault. I shouldn't have had sex. Like, if you can't even make that fucking in your mind.
Yeah, or one step further of when he asked if this was good, I should have said, can we please?
I know.
I should have not said yes and said, can we please slow it down? And then repeat
Can we
that
stop?
however
Can
many
we
times he asked. Like,
yeah, as in say yes every time he asked. Yeah. She repeated the word yes every time he fucking asked. So, yeah, she's an asshole. She's dumb. I empathize with the vulnerable state of mind. I lose all empathy when you then turn around and say, it's all your fault. You forced me. You pushed me. I didn't want to do it. Like, how was I supposed to know that when I fucking asked you 50 times, do you want to do this? So the takeaway is, I would generally say avoid chicks that go into their own head and they're super quiet. And I'm not talking about girls who are like a little shy.
It's not even like, it's so extreme. It's all you need when you say, does that feel good, for them to say,
yes, that feels good, or more, or moaning. Yeah, this is a very, don't overanalyze the girls you sleep with, guys. Don't be like, oh, she only says like 2 or 3 words when I ask her. It's like, that's fine. We're talking about, like, in this guy's case, he would be fucking her for a bit and it's just like she's fucking silent the entire time. And he's like, I don't know if she's having fun. And he would stop, like specifically stop and be like, are you enjoying this? And she'd be like, yeah, why'd you stop? And he's like, I don't know, because you were quiet for half an hour, you fucking freak. And so this...
Didn't say any of that. But yeah.
I know, he's too nice to say any of that. But, you know, the same thing you and I did when we broke up with that chick. She was really fucking hot too. Like, I really liked her body and, like... But it was just weird having sex with someone where, like, I'm looking down at her and I'm fucking her and I'm enjoying it, but I have to, like, hold back because I'm like, I don't know if she's enjoying this. And I'd stop. How many times did I stop? You can probably remember all the times I stopped.
Yep.
And I had to, like, almost autistically say, like, are you having fun? And, like, she would then pause and like, she'd nod. And I'd be like, tell me that you're having fun. And, she'd nod again. And I'd be like, no, say it. And then she'd go, I'm having fun. And then you're like, okay, but this isn't fucking fun for me. Because, again, it feels like I can't trust you. I can't trust that you would tell me where your boundaries are. Because that girl that we saw would not have.
Yeah.
She would not have told us. She would have told us afterwards. Now, I think the difference is she's not a fucking asshole and she's self-aware. I know if we, and I think we did one time where I spanked her too hard. I don't think it was like too much, but it was definitely like at that limit. Afterwards, she told us that. And I think that she was the kind of person who would be honest and say like, oh, I think we went too far. Like, let's not go that far. The difference is this chick here is just all of a sudden gone, you're the enemy. You're a bad person. It's all your fault.
Yeah.
Crazy. So takeaway message is don't stress too much about this. This is one of those topics when I cover it, I want to make sure that I don't, make someone paranoid. This isn't going to happen very often, guys. Let's make that fucking clear. Like, this is, I don't know how many girls this guy slept with. I think like 20, 15. I don't know. Whatever it is, this is really rare. There's only been like 1 or 2 girls that I've ever slept with that were like unresponsive like this. So it's already a really rare trait. And then a girl to just go like, I feel bad feelings, therefore you're a bad person. And it must be because you forced me. I didn't actually want to have sex and I didn't tell you that. And I didn't make that clear. And I said yes 100 times. Therefore, it's your fault. Like, you have to understand how fucking insane that is and what a lack of agency that is. And it's almost a fucking meme straight off the red pill when they say like feminists will just say that if they regret sex, then it's rape. And it's like, oh my God, this fucking idiot has literally done that. Like, she didn't use the rape word, but she fucking got close enough to it. So you have to understand that this is just an insane woman, an insane human being. And it's unfortunate, but that will happen sometimes. And, this guy's not that stressed about it. He was obviously, the kind of person he is. He was a little fucking thrown for a loop and gaslit and stressed the first couple of days. But his friend made him feel better. I made him feel better. So don't stress about this happening with you. It probably won't. And if you meet a girl that's not responsive, I would recommend not sleeping with that person. Or like try and get her to open up. And we tried with that girl that we saw, didn't we? But
yeah, for sure.
I think we tried a lot. But it just wasn't to be. So I said, no, I don't want to have sex with someone that literally doesn't even moan during sex. I feel like there's a bare minimum. Moan, say it's good, say yes, I like that, say, that's too much. can we slow down? Like, you have to be getting some sort of feedback. Otherwise, you are just like having sex with a fucking toy or something. A sex doll. All right. We shall leave it there. Wrap up for us, little miss. What do these people need to do? What do these boys and girls need to do?
Go out and crush their goals.
You got to say directly to the camera, sweetie.
Go out and crush your goals.
She's really bossy, isn't she, guys? I don't like how bossy she is. If you would like to go out and crush your goals, guys, like I don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna start speaking like that.
Yeah.
Buffer everything.
Yeah, in a passive
If
voice.
it's okay for you, if you don't mind.
That's beta male shit.